A.N. Whitehead famously said, "Civilization advances by extending the number of important operations which we can perform without thinking about them." Simply put, we progress based on the tasks we're able to automate and habituate. Habits, therefore, are the cheat code to progress. If you plug in the right habits, success is simply a matter of repetition. But the opposite is also true. If you stack the wrong habits, then you best be prepared for a life filled with frustration, discontent, and regret. And the truth is, your life at this very moment is the culmination of all the habits and routines that you've hardwired into your programming.
So I'm just, when you're going to be listening to this later on, you're going to be like, what the fuck?
Now, 10 years ago, as I was nearing 30 years old, I looked around at what my life had become, at the van I called home, at the $80,000 of debt looming over my head, at my poor relationships, and I realized I wasn't living up to the potential that I felt I had inside. It was from that rock bottom place then that I made a decision to change. I wanted to upgrade my habits, my skills. I wanted to become something more. I'm just gonna give you the 30 life and money habits to master before you turn 30 so that you can start realizing your greatness right now. So let's get to it. All right, so the first habit to master is that of first impressions. It took me way too long to learn this lesson, so listen up. You only get one chance to make a killer first impression, so you'd best make it a damn good one. But here's the thing that most people don't realize. Psychological studies show that people make snap decisions about others within the first second of seeing them, not meeting them, but seeing them. That means you've got to be on your A game the moment you walk through the door, whether that's meeting the potential woman of your dreams on a first date, meeting a business partner that could change your life at a networking event, or just closing a really big client worth $1 million of future revenue. So with this in mind, you've got to always be aware of the messages your body language is sending. If you walk through doors staring down at your cell phone, for example, what message are you sending? Well, to me, I might look at you and think, oh, he's busy or aloof or just distracted. On the other hand, if you walk through the door with your head held high, with great posture, a warm smile on your face, then chances are people are going to be attracted to you as a confident and inviting person. And because you just never know when a chance encounter could lead to something extraordinary, you've always got to be aware of the message that you send when you walk into a room. Next is conversation. I think conversation's a bit of a lost art. See, most people, whether it's talking to a stranger in the elevator, an acquaintance at a networking event, or even just a friend at the bar, most people suck at engaging in memorable conversation. And the reason for this is because most people just never think to practice. So if you want to stand out from the crowd and you want to leave people with a positive impression of you long after that interaction has ended, you've got to hone your skill as a conversationalist. And to become a great conversationalist, all you really got to do is master these three things: how to ask great questions, how to listen, and how to tell a great story. The most important thing that you've got to understand is that most people don't care what you have to say. They care about what they have to say. So the way you elevate yourself in people's mind is by giving them space to talk. But the problem is, most people simply don't know what to talk about. So your role in the conversation, therefore, is to ask great questions that get people to open up and share. From there, your job is just to shut up and listen. Find that next opportunity to ask the follow-up question, and then again, shut up and listen. Okay, so the trick to being perceived as a good conversationalist is to only do 20% of the talking. But eventually, you will have to share something about yourself, and this is where knowing how to tell a great story is going to come in handy. Seriously, just learning the basics of story structure, delivery, and body language, it's going to put you in the upper echelon of conversationalists. The next habit is listening. Again, people love being heard. The trick is to be present and attentive. Give the other person your full and undivided attention. So put the cell phone away, stop staring off into the distance or rehearsing in your mind what you plan to say next, and just be in the conversation. Focus on the speaker, cut out the distractions, and avoid jumping to conclusions. Whenever possible, ask clarifying questions and try your damnedest to empathize with the other person. Developing top-notch listening skills will lead not only to better relationships, but it will give you killer insights, as you will inevitably learn more than people who are just too busy talking. All right, the next habit is writing. I think writing is a superpower. Why? Because writing is thought made physical. The people who are able to clarify, organize, and communicate their thoughts through the written word are simply in a different league from those who cannot. Here's how I think about it. Thinking is just like dots on a page, scattered all over the place. But writing is taking those dots and connecting them to create structure and an image. So to become a better writer, you really just need to do two things: read and write. Now, reading is valuable because it gives you insights into how others have organized their thoughts. Pay attention to the words they use and the structure of their arguments. Next, just sit down and start writing. Don't overthink this. Just get a notebook, open up a Google Doc, pick a topic, and then just start writing. If you're like most people, you will find this incredibly difficult, but don't give up. Don't get frustrated. That's just how it is. The truth is, thinking ain't easy, which is why most people simply don't do it. All right, our next habit is public speaking. Now, most people are deathly afraid of public speaking, which is a shame because it's one of the most powerful skills any of us can acquire. And no, I'm not just talking about getting up on a stage in front of 10,000 people. Public speaking can take many forms, including small team meetings at work or in your business. The ability to confidently get up in front of a group of people and deliver a message with impact, it immediately elevates your authority and influence in all areas of your life. And the truth is, becoming an above average public speaker isn't all that difficult because the bar is set so damn low. So put in the time and effort now, and trust me, you're gonna thank me later. All right, next habit is fitness. There is potentially no better investment that you can make than in your health. As Seneca said, the healthy man wants 1,000 things, the sick man wants but one. So it's imperative that you create rituals around maintaining a high level of fitness. Whether that's lifting weights, it's running, swimming, playing tennis, find a way to stay fit. Not only will prioritizing your fitness help you look and feel fantastic, it's also gonna boost your energy, which leads to increased productivity and overall happiness. The next habit goes hand in hand with this. It's nutrition. If your body is the vehicle carrying you through life, then the food you eat is the fuel. The reason most people experience brain fog, low energy, or just the inability to focus is because they are putting garbage fuel into their body. Now, as software engineers say, if you put junk in, you get junk out. On the other hand, if you put high quality fuel into your tank, you're gonna experience heightened levels of energy, mental clarity, and an insane boost to your mood. So treat your body like the high performance machine that it is by feeding it the best fuel possible. Your future self will thank you, I guarantee it. The next habit is that of sleep. Now, the hustle porn culture has villainized sleep for decades with its claims that you can sleep when you're dead or that the sleep is for the weak. And this is all complete crap. Studies repeatedly show there is nothing you can do that'll have a bigger impact on your physical and mental health than getting a good night's sleep. Your goal is to aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep each night. The key for me is to prioritize going to bed at the same time every evening and then going through like a nightly shutdown ritual. Seriously, sleep, it's not a luxury. It's not for the lazy. It is a necessity if you want to be a high performer. So do not skimp out on this. The next habit is that of investing. Warren Buffett said it best: if you can't find a way to make money in your sleep, then you will work until you die. And this is why you've got to learn the investing game. You don't need a master's degree to do well. You just need to know the rules and then find 1 or 2 strategies that you can master. To learn more about the rules and strategy of money, actually, you can check out this video we did called I Read 100 Books on Money. Here's what I learned. I'll put a link in the description below. The next habit is that of energy management. I believe that energy is your most important resource. The quality of your life takes a nosedive when you're drained, you're exhausted, and you're running on fumes. And this is why it's so damn important that you master your 3 levers of energy, which is sleep, nutrition, and exercise. Additionally, you need to become a student of your energy levels. You need to observe where they are throughout the day and then schedule tasks accordingly. Tackle high priority activities when you're at your peak and save low energy tasks for when you're at your lows. All right, our next habit is that of discipline. If there is one skill or habit I can point to as the reason I no longer am up to my eyeballs in debt, I'm no longer living in the back of a van, it would be discipline. The ability to force yourself to do the hard thing, even in the absence of motivation, is what separates professionals from amateurs. The key is to recognize that if you can't discipline yourself, then the world is gonna have to do it for you. Which is why throughout my 20s, I was constantly in and out of relationships. I was getting fired. I could just barely get by. If you want to change the trajectory of your life, you need to develop discipline. To learn how to do that, watch the video I'm going to link in the description called Learning This About Discipline Changed My Life. All right, next up is learning. The ability to learn, to improve, and to grow beyond your current limitations, it's a gift from the gods that only humans possess. I want you to think of a baby horse. Within minutes of being born, it's up, it's running around, it's eating, it's jumping, it's doing more or less all the things that a horse can do. And you compare that to a human baby who within minutes of being born is practically useless. And most of us, we continue in that state of complete uselessness for like the next couple decades. But because of our capacity to learn, it's only a matter of time until we become world changers. So to unlock your limitless potential, it's imperative you learn how to learn and then use that ability as much as humanly possible. All right, our next habit is focus. Now, I believe attention is the new oil. Every single day, trillions of dollars are being spent trying to separate you from your attention. Whenever they succeed, they get paid. Whenever you succeed in staying focused, you get paid. So the trick? Figure out how to stay focused. And that's a much bigger topic for a different day entirely. All right, our next habit is relaxation. A life lived in constant pursuit of the next accomplishment, that next goal, the next milestone, it's exhausting. Also, it's not a terribly fulfilling one. As with all things in life, I believe balance is the key. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't work hard towards your goals, but simply realize that all you really have in life is this very moment. So embrace it. Don't be afraid to switch off and unwind every now and then. Not only are you going to be more productive in the long run, you're going to live longer, you're going to have way more fun along the way. So our next habit is personal finance. By the time I turned 30, I knew embarrassingly little about personal finance. It wasn't a topic my family grew up talking about. And you take that and you couple it with the fact I was $80,000 in debt, it meant I felt a lot of shame whenever I thought about money. So I stuck my head in the sand. I pretended like it didn't matter, that I didn't care. But that didn't change the fact that it did matter and that I did care. A truth which eventually caught up with me when a loved one was dying and I didn't have the money to help save their life. As they say, money doesn't solve all your problems, but it does solve all your money problems. And many of life's problems, they are money problems. So learn the money game. Conduct regular financial audits, create a budget, live below your means, build an emergency fund, and invest in your money-making potential. If you do all that, you'll probably be doing all right in the long run. The next habit goes hand in hand with this, making money. If your goal is to achieve financial freedom, then you must develop high-value skills that you can leverage to create either larger or additional income streams. By the time I turned 30, I had very few valuable skills, which is why I wasn't making very much money. It was only once I started creating daily routines around learning, honing, and deploying high-value money-making skills that the number in my bank account started to change for the better. Now, if you're curious, what are some high-value money-making skills worth acquiring? Then check out the two videos I'm going to link in the description below. One is called The Millionaire Skill Stack, and the other is The 6 Skills That Made Me a Millionaire in 3 Years. Our next habit has nothing to do with making money. It's journaling. Aristotle once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Truthfully, I think a lot of the discontent that I personally experienced throughout my 20s stemmed from my stunning lack of self-awareness and introspection. I attribute much of the success that I've had over the past decade to a regular journaling practice, as it's helped me unlock powerful insights, clarify my thoughts, process my emotions, and set intentions. Now, in my experience, there is no right or wrong way to journal. Just pick up a pen, sit down at the keyboard, and just start writing whatever's in your head. Don't censor yourself. Don't critique what's coming out. Just gush. All right, next habit is that of self-defense. Despite the progress that we've made as a society over the past 100 years, the truth is, the world is still a very dangerous place. Learning self-defense and regularly training a martial art like jiu-jitsu, boxing, or Muay Thai, it's one of the most practical ways that I know to simultaneously develop increased confidence, self-control, and the ability to protect yourself. Bonus points for the fact that you're also going to get in fantastic shape in the process. All right, next up is self-care. An interesting study a few years ago showed that people are more likely to take their pet to the vet when it became ill or injured than they were to take themselves to the doctor when they were ill or injured. Think about that. People take better care of their pets than they take care of themselves, and that simply won't do. You're worth more than you give yourself credit for. So make a point of developing a self-care routine that prioritizes nourishing your mind, your body, and your soul. Because here's the thing, if you don't, nobody else will. Also, something interesting occurs when you start taking better care of yourself. Suddenly, your ability to support others increases. So you see, taking care of yourself is actually a selfless act because it's from your overflowing cup that you can help fill others. All right, the next habit is vulnerability. And truthfully, I didn't really start to figure this one out until only a few years ago at the ripe old age of 36. I am by no means an expert at being vulnerable, but I've learned a few things over the past few years that I wish somebody would have beaten into my thick skull sooner. See, for the first 3.5 decades of my life, I wore a mask. I pretended to be the guy who had it all figured out, who was self-reliant and had his shit together. I was so afraid that people would see the truth, that I was struggling, and that they might judge me as unworthy. So I kept my true feelings, my fears, my dreams locked up inside. And the result was that my relationships were shit and I hated myself. And one of the biggest transformations in my life has been the realization that vulnerability is actually a sign of strength, not weakness. And that the only way to foster truly deep connections is by showing up as your most authentic and vulnerable self. I truly hope you figure this one out way quicker than me. Our next habit is that of integrity. I used to ask all new hires in my businesses, do you have integrity? And not a single one ever said no. Now that's not surprising, but the way they answered the next question was, how do you define integrity? Interestingly, no two people ever came up with the same exact answer. And this is why it's so important that we need to define the terms that we're talking about before engaging in conversation on a topic. For me, I define integrity as you do what you say. That is, your actions and your words are in alignment. Again, I struggled with integrity throughout my 20s because often I said things that were incongruent with my actions. In fact, I was pretty terrible at keeping the commitments that I made both to others and maybe more importantly to myself. I believe your self-esteem is simply the reputation you have with yourself. If you lack integrity, then you're gonna have a dubious reputation. And I promise that's gonna eat at you and it's gonna lead to a life of regret. Next up is emotional control. The Buddha said it best, in life, we cannot control the first arrow because it represents the unexpected conditions of life. But we can control how we respond to the second arrow, which is fueled by our reaction and judgment. Thousands of years later, after surviving a concentration camp in World War II, Viktor Frankl said, between the stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our freedom and power to choose our responses. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So here's the takeaway. You are only free in this life to the extent that you are able to control your emotions. If you cannot master your emotions, then you will be doomed to serve them. The next habit is that of decision making. Most of us were never taught a systematic way to make better decisions, which is a shame because, as Naval Ravikant says, in an age of infinite leverage, judgment becomes the most important skill. And good judgment goes hand in hand with our ability to make good decisions. So if you want to learn my 3-part system for making better decisions, make sure you check out the video called The Millionaire Skill Stack, linked down in the description below. Our next habit is that of patience. One of the most powerful perspective shifts I've undergone in the past decade is the realization that I have just so much more time ahead of me. Even now, as I approach 40, it feels as though the game is just beginning. Now, if you're watching this and you're in your 20s, that might be really hard to imagine, much less believe, but I assure you it's true. And this is good news because all the things that make life worth living, like strong relationships, good health, financial stability, they take time. So start cultivating patience now by realizing that the race is long and your ability to show up consistently matters far more than your ability to show up with intensity. Okay, so now I'm gonna immediately contradict myself because our next habit is that of execution. Yes, you need to practice patience, but also realize that often the difference between successfully capitalizing on an opportunity or missing the boat entirely depends on your speed of execution. When opportunity knocks, you gotta get off your ass and move with purpose. So how do we balance these contradicting ideas of patience and execution? By developing micro speed and macro patience, or as Naval puts it, impatience with actions, patience with results. Next up, we have personal presentation. Listen, we all know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but we do. All of us, even the most well-intentioned, are guilty of this. So we got to be aware of it and don't make things harder on ourselves by showing up with a shitty book cover. Pay attention to how you dress, how you stand, how you maintain eye contact, how you shake hands, how you walk into a room, and most important of all, how you make others feel. The way you present yourself communicates volumes about who you are and what you stand for. So cultivate your image and the message you're communicating to the world with intention. Next, we have conflict management. One of the questions I get most often is, what's the hardest part of building a business? And the answer is simple. It's people. Whether it's customers, it's employees, partners, vendors, at some point, you're going to have to deal with other people, regardless of the type of business you're building. And the problem with people is that we're all different in what we want, what we need, and what we desire. And because of this, there is no one-size-fits-all solution for interacting with other people. There's no simple system you can deploy that's going to work regardless of scenario. This means you're inevitably gonna piss people off. Now, your ability to manage that conflict is one of those subtle life skills which is going to dictate the overall quality of your relationships. Good conflict management stems from your ability to effectively deploy what's called tactical empathy, which is something that will serve you in all areas of life. All right, our next habit is history. Now, I've noticed an interesting commonality amongst all the people who I consider wise. They almost always look at current problems through the lens of history. And I think that's because of what Mark Twain pointed out years ago. History never repeats itself, but it always rhymes. The problem with being young is that you just haven't been around the block very long. So you haven't been exposed to enough history yet. But once you become a student of history, you unlock this strange superpower called context. And with this context, you start seeing patterns and connections between seemingly unrelated events. Remember, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And in my estimation, the man or woman with a firm understanding of history has the ability to see beyond the present to the future, which will be shaped, as it always has been, by the past. The next habit is that of poise. Now, I used to coach young competition rock climbers, which is a particularly challenging skill to teach because pretty much every human on the planet has, to some degree, a fear of heights. And fear is a hell of a thing that makes us behave in really stupid ways. For instance, when you're dangling from the side of a cliff by your fingertips, the fear response says you better hold on for all you're worth. So in that moment, it's natural for people to freeze and become incapacitated by fear. Now, the problem with this response is that it's not doing anything to improve your situation. In fact, it's actively making it worse because you're probably wasting precious energy shivering like a leaf and over-gripping whatever you're holding on to. In this state, you're just accelerating the rate at which you will inevitably reach exhaustion and thus fail. So the only solution that optimizes for success is to act in the face of fear in a calm, calculated, and precise manner. I call this poise, and I believe it's a superpower that the highest achievers amongst us are able to conjure on demand. Our next habit is confidence. The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. But it's not craziness which compels these world changers forward. It's confidence. It's just this unshakable belief that they have in themselves to problem solve, to adapt, and to ultimately execute. Now, maybe you don't have grand ambitions to change the world, but I'm sure you don't believe you were put on this planet just to be ordinary. You don't believe in your heart of hearts that you're average. No, there's greatness in you, a potential that you probably feel bubbling just beneath the surface that you're compelled to pursue. Well, I've been consistently amazed throughout my life by how far people, no different than you and me, end up making it simply as a result of moving towards their dreams with confidence. So what are you waiting for? Hone these 30 habits and then go forth with confidence to change everything.